All right, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Toon podcast. Today we've got kind of a special episode coming at you, all to do with the final running of the last 6 games of the Premier League for Newcastle United and the competition for the push for that Champions League spot. Now there are 5 places available. It's opened it up to make it that little bit more comfortable for the position we are in. But I am joined by Mark down in Brisbane. How was your Good Friday been, mate?
Pretty quiet, nice and chilled. Went out for a few beers last night, so I thought I was expecting to be a little bit more hungover than I was. I pulled up pretty well this morning, so yeah, just been chilling out, trying to recharge the batteries.
Nice one.
What about yourself?
Pretty chill for myself as well. There's not a lot open here on Good Friday. Good Friday here in Australia is the equivalent of Easter Sunday in the UK, if anyone was wondering. Pretty much everything shuts down. It's been a few beers, a few movies watching on the TV, that sort of thing. Not major, and just relaxing for the weekend. Looking forward to the Villa game. But before we touch on the Villa game and everything else, I was going to briefly talk about the Palace game, which we didn't do a review on. We'll just tagged it all in with this one. It's going to be quite a jam-packed episode. This was the game I think both of us feared more than the Man United game in terms of the potential banana skin. How wrong we were, weren't we?
Indeed. I mean, it all comes about from the fact that we just typically don't play well against Palace, and they're a good team. They're definitely capable of stringing some decent football together. I was definitely not confident, but how wrong we could have been.
It was started off absolutely fantastic. We were like a house on fire, and Jacob Murphy. I mean, what more can you say about that lad? He's loving life. He's loving his role in the club, and now he's scoring thunder bastards in the same scenario as Tonali did against Brentford. Now he says he meant this one. Tonali said he didn't. Which side of the fence are you on for his goal?
I think he definitely meant that one. He looked up. There wasn't anything on for him. There wasn't an easy pass on, so he's absolutely lashed it at the keeper. He fully meant that, and what a strike it was as well.
Oh God! The power behind it was unreal. Keeper was getting anywhere near it, even if he was a step closer to his goal. But it turned out to be a very comfortable game. 5-0 prediction. Also, big shout out to Marcus, who finally got his 5-0 prediction right. He's predicted a 5-0 win pretty much every game we've ever covered on the pod in 3 years. How long we've been doing this, and he finally got it right. So big up to Marcus on that one. Well done. But the game itself, 4-0 at halftime. Own goal from Mark Gooey, as we like to call him here on the channel. He scored 2 goals for Newcastle United this season. That's more than Callum Wilson has. And how good was Harvey Barnes in this game?
Yeah, he's been absolutely sensational since he came in for Gordon, and it's one of those things where when he's not getting regular game time, and he's coming off the bench, and we saw it late in this game. It's like when the games are either we're struggling in a game or we're kind of cruising in a game, there's not a lot to play for from the subs at the moment. So we seem to be like in this situation where we're bringing players off the bench and they're not really getting a good run out in terms of proper play, if you like, because we're just kind of, getting extra bodies on the pitch, or we're like throwing everything in the kitchen sink at the team to try and get back into a game. The difference Harvey Barnes has made, though, like he's one of the things that I've always been skeptical on him about wasn't his goal scoring, despite the commentator the other day saying that apparently it's a known weakness of his. And even though he's on radio, should be able to perceive my air quotes on that one. It's like you couldn't be any more wrong. He's always been known for his goal scoring. I was always skeptical about his tracking back and his work rate off the ball and his general link-up play. But he's grafting like no tomorrow. He's obviously he's been working hard to get in the side. He's got his opportunity, and he's making sure that he holds on to that for as long as he can.
Absolutely, yeah. And as long as that continues, Gordon's going to struggle to get back into the side, and it's only fair. As Gordon only got into the side last season because Barnes picked up that random freak injury at Sheffield United. I think it was in that 8-0 win. Yeah. He got injured. It was his own fault. He got red carded. So he's got no one else to blame. The fact that he's lost his place in the squad, and he's lost it to a player who is now banging form. Speaking of another player that's banging form, and we've waxed lyrical about him for a good number of weeks now. The table has turned in where he was earlier on in the season, and that is Sandro Tonali. What a freaking player we've got on our hands there. Just The club sent out a tweet shortly after the game with just a picture of him, just said metronome. He is the definition of a metronome of our midfield. As good as we talk about Bruno, Tonali at this minute in time is just that step above, isn't he?
Yeah, it's interesting where I don't know what the weakness in his game is, if there is one. He's just good at everything, and to have like, I mean, Isak, obviously we all know exactly how good he is.
Yeah.
Tonali is every bit as good, if not better, I think, in terms of his all-round play. He's just faultless. His passing, his control of the ball, his energy, his work rate, his vision on the ball. And there's some stats going around where his pass completion rate's not very good. But the main thing to take from that is it's because he's trying game-breaking passes.
Yeah.
He sees the game so well that he's if he threads that ball through, then it's probably a goal, or it's probably like an easy opportunity for an assist for a goal. He's always kind of like 3 steps ahead in terms of his gameplay. And sometimes those passes, they're not easy passes. They're going to go astray. They're going to go to an opposition defender. They're going to get blocked out. They're not going to quite come off. So, but you know, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, sort of thing. So. I much prefer him to have a slightly lower pass completion percentage than to take that away from his game. But he's just outstanding, and he seems really happy. I know Juventus have been linked, and apparently we're going to accept a 60-odd million pound bid from them, like when we paid 53 for him in the first place. Yeah, the big clubs, I think, need to wake up that. Look, and we'll cover the table and where we are, and the sky's the limit at the moment for us. But I think a lot of people are starting to take notice of us. I think a lot of people are starting to take note of our players, and they all seem to have finally started to get the grasp that we're not under Ashley anymore. We're not here to be taken advantage of. You want our players, you pay over the odds for them to make it worth our while. Otherwise, shut up, get on with your own players, or find someone else from another club, do your own scouting, because these players are here. They're all happy. They're seemingly playing for the manager. They're playing for each other. They're playing for the fans. And, you know, I'm loving every second of it.
Absolutely, yeah. Couldn't have said it better myself. There's one part of the game I just want to talk about now, because it could have been a game-changing moment, and that was the penalty, which should never have been in the first place. And I think everybody's pretty much agreeing with that one. I think even if you Palace fans, I think, you know, that's a little bit harsh on Nick Pope. What were your thoughts on the penalty decision itself? And out of 10, with 10 being the shittest, where would you rank that penalty kick?
Never a penalty. It's a bullshit call off the ref. Look, Pope didn't get a lot of the ball, but he definitely got a little bit of a touch on the ball. The player was getting nowhere near it. It was a coming together because they were both going for the ball. That's like a 50-50 anywhere else on the pitch. That doesn't result in a foul almost. Or it's one of those kind of really, really dodgy, contentious sort of like where we've got to kind of pick a foul out in the middle of the pitch. But to give a penalty away from that, and then to have VAR check for so long, then the ref come over and have another look at it himself and still come up with that call. It's just like, oh, come on, seriously.
Yeah.
The justice was had though in the end. I don't know if Gay and Eze are auditioning for a summer move to Newcastle and they want to make sure we're in the Champions League, but you know that's 2 goals for Gay for us this season. And Eze did his best to absolutely botch that penalty well and truly. It was probably like an 11 on the shitometer scale. It was just dreadful. He basically had his little stutter step. He sidestepped. He stopped, and he was just waiting for Nick Pope to make a move. And Nick Pope just sat there and went, "Well, what are you doing?" And then he's basically passed it into his hands. And like a few seconds later, we go down and score at the other end. It was brilliant.
Yeah, it reminds me of see these videos of parents in goal against the kids. The kids just take a shot and it just rolls towards them. The dad picks the ball like, "However, son, you can do better than that." And it was a genuine terrible penalty. I hate those stuttered run-ups, but obviously it played in our favour. The balance then swung in ours, as you just mentioned, because we went to the pitch, scored just a short while later. And then Fabian Schär got one just before half-time with a delicious cross swinging from Jacob Murphy. So that's a goal and another assist for Murphy. And then Big Dog wraps it up with probably the hardest chance he had of that game. And he scores that one. when he should have probably had a hat-trick in that game, I would have thought.
Yeah, he had plenty of chances. He kept sort of picking the keeper out when it seemed harder to do that than actually score the goal. But look, he's kind of been through a couple of games with a little bit of a barren spell at the moment, and there's always that little thing in the back of your mind where one of the criticisms of him in Spain was that he would go on these really hot runs and then have like a spell where he couldn't hit a cow's ass with a banjo. But you know, it hasn't lasted too long. Thankfully for us, that's 25 for the season for him, 21 in the league, and he's now in joint second in the Golden Boot. So hopefully Salah continues to struggle. Big Dog can continue on his fine run of form on the back of that one goal and sort of make his mark on the Golden Boot. Add another few $100 million to his price tag.
Absolutely, because he's got anywhere in the summer, that's for sure. But so we ran out 5-0, comfortable winners. Game was dead and buried come the end of the first half. We took our foot off the gas, so to speak, a little bit in the second to conserve energy because we don't have a big squad and we've got a lot of games coming. And speaking of games coming, we have a monumental game down at Villa Park this weekend. This game, I'm not sure how this one's going to pan out because obviously Villa got knocked out of the Champions League against PSG. They put a lot of effort and energy into trying to claw that result back. So God knows what frame of mind they're going to be in. They could be like Liverpool when we face them in the cup final. Again, shortly after getting eliminated after PSG. We'll bring up the running table. So this is basically the remaining fixtures of all clubs who are competing for a Champions League spot. There's no Liverpool or Arsenal because their place is pretty much already given. But our next game is against Villa. But there's us, Forest, City, Chelsea, and Villa all fighting for those remaining 3 Champions League places. This game against Villa, Mark, of the fixtures that we've got left, this is probably, I would say, the most important out of the lot because it creates a further gap between our position in 3rd and Villa's down in 7th.
Yeah, it's weird though because you look at the run in that like all of these teams have got, and it's absolutely bonkers where we could legitimately still finish second in the table, and we could drop out of all of the European spots altogether and have to rely on the Carabao Cup win to get into Europe. It's still super tight at the top there. My feeling is you're right. The Villa game, I don't know if we need to win it, but we definitely can't lose it.
I'd agree with that.
It's that arguable 6-pointer. I think if we can get a win, it's a huge gap then back to Villa. Keeps the momentum going, and we know how much of a momentum side we are. So yeah, it's one of those things where you run into the Ipswich game at home. We've got Chelsea at home. I fancy us to beat Chelsea at home. I fancy us to beat anyone at home the way everything's going. We're back on that kind of that level of play that we've got with the home crowd behind us. It was a bit sketchy early in the season, but I'd love for Eddie to be back in charge and lead us to a 4th victory of the season against Arsenal away. That would be absolutely cherry on top of the cake. I desperately do not want to have to go into that Everton game needing anything from that game because Everton are just so unpredictable. Moyes has got them playing back pretty well. They're kind of getting some results now against some of the teams that we're sort of competing with. So yeah, taking nothing for granted from that Everton game, last game of the season. It is at home. Again, it's one of those things where if that is a do or die game, then at least it's at home and hopefully the crowd's well and truly up for it. But again, it could go the other way. So yeah, let's just get it done, get the points on the board, get that gap opened up and let us enjoy the rest of the season.
Absolutely. Looking at the remaining fixtures that we've got, so we've got Villa at home, Villa away, Ipswich at home, Brighton away, Chelsea at home, Arsenal away, Everton home, as you've just mentioned. Each club has an even balance of 3 home and 3 away games, obviously spread out. Of those fixtures there, I'm not going to go through every team's fixtures, but apart from Ipswich and Everton, who are now just really fighting for pride, to be honest, because they've got nothing to play for in terms of trophy or anything, Ipswich will go down, unfortunately. All those other clubs, so Villa, Brighton, Chelsea, And you'll say Arsenal for the league because they'll still want to finish as high as they possibly can.
Yeah.
They've got something to fight for. The other teams in and around, so Forest, City, Chelsea, and Villa, their fixtures aren't quite as tricky on paper, at least. So that's why I think our running is a little bit tougher than theirs, but thankfully we're in the better position than any of those other 4 teams. And like I say, if you mentioned before, as you mentioned before, sorry, we can get a result down at Villa Park, being a draw or come away with 3 points, then that will be a monumental result, which will put us on 60. I kind of done a mock table, went through the entire season with some fixtures I thought would go, and I got 66 points. We're only 7 points away from that, and I do believe with those remaining 6 fixtures, 7 points is absolutely doable, and I do think 66 would be enough for Champions League spot. Whether it be enough to finish in 3rd, 4th, or 5th, who knows? But what's your thoughts on the fixtures of everybody else in and around us for that time frame, Mark?
Yeah, it's things like when you look at the Aston Villa games and they've got Spurs and Man United to finish the season, and they will pretty much be nothing to play for if they're moving on into maybe like a European Cup final or something like that. Then their attention's going to be elsewhere. If they're not in those, then what's the point in the league for them? They're not going to get relegated. They're not going to get up in the table. It's going to be hard for those to beat teams like Liverpool, Chelsea, who do have something to play for, who are kind of like putting it on the line. We don't know what Chelsea turns up these days. They're capable of absolutely fantastic football. They're also capable of being a basket case club. So, look, I do feel we have the toughest run-in on paper. The Brighton away game, obviously none of us like Brighton away because Brighton always managed to seemingly hammer us down there. But they're not on a good form themselves. So I think a lot of it's just going to come down to us keeping the momentum going, keeping playing the way we're going, hopefully stay clear of injuries, touch wood. And then, just keep playing as hard as we can until we can't play anymore and see how we are at the end of the season. The other teams, they've got games that are winnable, but the good thing for us is it's well and truly in our hands. We're playing Villa, we're playing Chelsea, so if we can beat both of those, then the spots should be ours. And I genuinely, I know there's like possibly some like playoff qualification spots for the Champions League or something like that, where you've got to play like some team from Belgium's like B League or something to get through. But yeah, look, I don't care. We've got European football signed up. We've got a cup. If we can get Champions League for next season, I think this is going to go down as like one of the most epic seasons ever for this club. And I genuinely don't care if we finish 2nd or 5th, as long as we get that Champions League spot.
Yeah, I completely agree with that one. 2nd, 3rd, 4th, or 5th will absolutely do me not a problem at all. It would be an absolute shame to throw it away at this stage of the season, considering the advantage that we have over being not just in points, but also on goal difference as well. Our goal difference coming to the end of the season could be worth that extra point. It was, I think, against Man United how we missed out on Europe on goal difference, I think. So that can be a big impact. So hopefully we can smash a few of the teams, get a few more goals, and that plus goal difference keeps climbing. Getting back to the Villa game, I'm going to remove this graphic now. How do you see this one panning out in terms of 2 teams having quick turnaround from their previous games? But one thing that we haven't really had the luxury until the last few is being able to take some of the bigger names off a good 20, 25 minutes earlier than towards the final whistle, sorry. So the likes of Bruno, Big Joe, whatever, even Trippier, they've all come off, say, the 65, 70-minute mark, whereas games where we've had to see it out right until the last minute, it's taken around about the 90th minute before they've come out. How important is these extra 20 minutes of break between games for these key players?
Certainly can't hurt. I think it's been the last 2 games, especially because we've managed to be able to get we've effectively played 60 minutes of football each game and then just rode it out with the bench coming on to kind of like shore up the game, waste some time and see the game out. Just nothing flash, just get out there, get the business done. If you're getting like an extra half hour out of like taking a half-hour football out of the way of these players, that's obviously going to give them more energy, more longevity when the other games do come around. And as you said, it's like quick turnarounds of these games. Villa's played, they obviously played in Europe as well. They kind of, I think we all wanted that to go to penalties and extra time and what have you. Unfortunately, we didn't quite get that. But it's going to be interesting to see how Villa reacts, because I think there was this expectation that if they had gone through, then they could win the Champions League, and then that would get them Europe anyway. Now there's like this sense of, well, hang on, we now need to crack on with the league because we need to secure our Champions League spot again for next season. So it's obviously they're going to be disappointed with the result, but at the same time, it's how they bounce back from that. And that's kind of what worries me, is I don't know which Aston Villa is going to turn up. I don't know if they're going to be a little bit disheartened, and if we get at them early, then we can capitalize on that sort of unsureness from them. But at the same time, they could be properly fired up to come out and put things right, and kick on and say, well, look, okay, we're out, but we're gonna push on and qualify again, and we're gonna go at it again. We want two seasons in a row. It could go either way, and I think that's what's concerning me the most.
Yeah, it very well could, and there will be goals in this game. I can't remember the last time there was a 0-0 draw between Villa and Newcastle when Howe and Emery have played. There's always been a good number of goals. We beat them 3-0 earlier on the season at St James's. Yes, Villa had a man sent off in John Duran when he kicked out against Fabian Shaw. That was a relatively comfortable game. Again, yes, they were 1 man down. And we did score within, I think it's the first minute or something like that, when Gordon curled one in from the left-hand side, past the world's best goalkeeper, apparently. And games like this, where you've got two free-flowing attacking teams, it's obviously an absolute fantastic advert for the Premier League, but it's be great to see us, Forest and Villa, all qualifying for the Champions League, because it's a breath of fresh air for those fans around the world that may not have seen enough of these three clubs. And I think if City and Chelsea were to drop out, I think that would actually be better for the competition as a whole. Yes, City, they've got the riches of players and everything, and they will still probably get there. But I think those three getting through would be absolutely superb. But two attacking teams, Emery likes to play that high line, as we've famously destroyed numerous occasions. You've got to think back that 5-1 it's in James's where Tonali scored on his debut. Harvey Barnes scored on his debut that day as well. And last season, was it 3-1 we beat them there? I think so. Yeah, I think Fabian Shaw got 2 and Murphy got the other when he rattled his nutsack off the post to tap it in. But yeah, so there will be goals. It's just a case of, do we have the mentality, which I believe we do? Will we be fired up for the game? Yes, I think we will. Will we have the stamina to see the game out? Because again, yes, we just played a decent game. That was a bit of a day or two after Villa, and we got to travel down there as well. So that's 1 day less of training effectively and 1 day less of recovery. How do you see this game pan out in terms of a result? Do you see it two teams being cautious and cagey against each other? Or do you think it's literally just going to be, right, you attack, we attack, and come the final whistle, we'll see who's put the ball in the back of the net the most?
If Villa come out and try to attack us, I think we'll pick them off. I think we've proven that we can pick them off at will on the counter-attack. It's our strength. We've seen it against Spurs. We've seen it against other clubs that have this footballing philosophy, and no matter what, they're not going to get away from that footballing philosophy. And that's the only way they're going to play, no matter what happens. And we take advantage of that time and time again. And so we've got the quality going forward. We know that. We've been very very good defensively. And I know I'm probably cursing us and we're going to concede 7 goals now. But I think we will both score goals, as you said. I think we would potentially get off to a good start, but I'm a little bit more concerned that they will finish the stronger. And if the crowd get on their side, I think that could be the difference. I'm hoping that we can take advantage early, kind of quieten everything down, and then really just shore everything up and see the game out. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know exactly if Emery's going to be able to or willing to change the way they play. And if he does that, then I think we'll definitely score goals.
Yeah. It's there's definitely goals in it. There's the game's famous for effectively between these two as of late. Now, if we do beat Villa, bring their running back up, that will put us on 62 points, which will put us 8 ahead of Villa in that running. So yeah, in terms of how it's going to look, that puts a massive gap between us and third and Villa in seventh, or whether they may even end up at the weekend of previous fixtures. I don't think they can be caught from where they are. I'll bring the league table up in just a second. But looking at some other key fixtures for just this weekend there, you've got Forest away to Spurs, which, again, you've no idea which Spurs team are going to turn up. Most of the time, it's a shit one. And Forest having a little bit of a wobble right now. So that could, again, create a little bit of daylight. Man City are away to Everton. You'd probably think that's a foregone conclusion, the way they dismantled Palace in the same way we did. But as you mentioned, Everton are kind of turning a corner. Chelsea away to Fulham, that could be a tricky one because Fulham, they're a decent side, as we found out earlier in the season. And Chelsea, again, bit of a hodgepodge. And as mentioned, we're away at Villa. Some of the key fixtures within this running for the final 6 games. And this is where I think Villa could drop off in terms of the run in here, is if we beat them at the weekend, okay, that's a big if. They then go away to City the following week. If they were to lose against us and City and the pack was to pull away, I think that's them done with in terms of the running. I don't think they would have enough. And then they'll focus their attention on the FA Cup because they have a semi-final, can't remember who against, but they are still in the running for that. The next 2 weeks could pan out this picture a lot in our favour, Mark.
There's some interesting games when you look at it. So yeah, obviously Villa's playing us and City. So out of that top 5, like that pack of five clubs, Forest's playing Chelsea on the last game of the season. Mm-hmm. So it could end up coming down to the fact that whoever wins that gets that 5th spot or something. It could literally go down to that wire. Man City, apart from the Villa game, do seem to have a fairly kind of comfortable run in. Fulham are capable of some results, so I'm never going to say that that's a gimme. But Bournemouth seem to have dropped off a cliff. Southampton are absolutely rubbish. Wolves are not very good. So you've got to think that City are going to finish pretty strongly this season. And then it's going to be a case of, with the Chelsea and the Villa games, what Man United turns up for some of those games. We absolutely destroyed Man United. I don't think they even thought of that game at all. I don't think they really wanted to compete in that game. I think their eyes were firmly on Europe. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. Some of it's going to depend on what Spurs turns up, what Man United turns up. Obviously, West Ham away for Forest. They've got Leicester. They're crap. Palace, again, we were worried about Palace. They're capable of pulling out a result. I think their focus is probably more on the cup at the moment. So maybe if they're still in that, then Forest could get an easy win in that as well. So, but yeah, there's some interesting games coming up, and I don't think it's over by a long shot.
No, it definitely isn't. But I'm looking at it there and I'm thinking, where could we potentially have this sewn up? And I'm hoping the final whistle of the Chelsea game. I think if we could have it sewn up by then, home game, then the last 2 games, we could play the kids at Arsenal, and then we could play the kids against Everton, give the players a bit of a break and get some experience in some of the younger players. How many points do you think we will take from that remaining 18, with a maximum attainable point for the season being 77?
I'd like to see us probably push for like 9 or 10 points from that list.
Right, okay. And where do you see us getting those points from?
I think we could easily win against Villa at the weekend. I'm going to predict a win. I think we'll win against Ipswich at home pretty comfortably. I think we'll beat Chelsea, and I think we'll get a point from probably the Arsenal or the Brighton game.
Yeah, so there's 10 points. So that puts us on 69. which looking
Dude,
at the
69, dude.
So yeah, 69 would comfortably put us in the Champions League spot, or top 5 at least, based on the past few years, looking at the history. But yeah, there are some very, very interesting fixtures in there. And the one thing is, you mentioned, I really don't want to go down to the last game of the season for Everton. Remember the Leicester game when we needed to qualify for the Champions League and Nick Pope pulled off that wonder save to keep it at 0-0. I do not want it to go to squeaky bum time, because
No.
T-Rex hands always turns into prime Buffon when he seems to play against us.
Yeah.
And I do not want that to happen. But yeah, my prediction is we will have it sewn up come the final whistle of Chelsea. I think we'll get beat against Villa, but I do think we will then win the next 3 matches. So we'll beat Ipswich, we'll beat Brighton, and we will beat Chelsea. And then the other 2 games, hopefully, it's just a case of seeing how high we can finish up the table. But that would be my prediction there. But I'm going to predict a loss for this Villa game. I just think the lads are going to be a little bit tired, and then we get back to the 1 game a week schedule. They can get a bit more energy back into those legs, and we can go full tilt. Actually, speaking of full tilt, how good was it to see Joe Linton avoid a yellow card so he can now go back to snapping legs properly?
Well, you say that, but he did his best, didn't he?
He did, didn't he?
He did everything but get a yellow card. How he escaped that, I do not know. Like Bruno, where Bruno was very disciplined and really knew that he was doing that. I mean, Joe Linton was after a scrap in both the Man United and the Palace game, wasn't he? And it's like Kieran Trippier is probably more to thank for the fact that he hasn't got his 10th yellow, because I think Joe Linton would have had one if he'd had his way.
God, yeah, it's I'm so glad he managed to, because it just goes to show he's got that discipline when needed, in the same way Bruno did last season. And the fact that he now effectively has a clean slate for those remaining 6 games means we can now get back to his physical best. So again,
into them.
It's going to be a wonder to see. And again, with that midfield of Tonali and Bruno, they seem to be getting better and better by the game. And hopefully we can control this game against Villa. We can get the 3 points, but I am going to predict a loss, unfortunately. But we'll get to an actual prediction in just a short time. But I'm going to bring up the league table now. As we all know, we are sitting pretty in third on 59 points. We have the joint best league form alongside Liverpool. We have the second best games won, only second to Liverpool, and same for goals scored, I believe, Mark. If we were to say those stats after the Brentford game back in December, I think it was, you probably would have had me committed.
Yeah, that was definitely a turning point game for us, wasn't it? We I think we all came out of that game going, where the hell's the season headed? We seem to have these moments, and then Eddie Howe comes under criticism from certain sections of the fan base, heavy criticism at that. Even we've kind of got to the point where, we didn't want Eddie Howe sacked, but there was definite concerns about where it was going to go, where it was going wrong, how we were going to turn it around. Something needed to change. But he's once again proven all of the doubters wrong. Up yours, Talk Sports. And then, just he's just pulled the rabbit out the hat again, got us turned around, and we've just never looked back since.
Yeah, it's been a phenomenal turnaround. And obviously was that cup run, the both 2-0 wins against Arsenal, home and away, everything like that, and the final itself. And the fact that we maintained that final when everyone thought, maintained that momentum from the final, when everyone thought that we would drop off. And to be honest, I wouldn't have been surprised if we had have, because they give everything in that match.
Yeah.
But somehow they managed to find more energy in spades and just keep going. And long may it continue, and hopefully we can continue it against Villa this weekend.
Indeed. It's one of those things where I think, it could have gone so quiet after that cup final, because it was just such a high, and it was always going to be a drop off from there. We had 2 weeks of just nothing but pure celebration and joy from all the fans. The players lapped it up, but again, Eddie Howe, credit to him, he's got everyone focused back into the league games. And I think there's I don't know if it's just because Eddie Howe's in hospital, and maybe there's this sense of we're doing it for him, and we need to make sure that we do him proud and keep things going for him while he's not here. But the the focus and the effort is just unquestionable at this moment in time. It's fantastic to watch. And it looks like all the players are kind of wanting to prove that point of, well, yes, everyone's saying we want to be able to play Champions League football. We need to play Champions League football. We're going to do it here. You know, we're going to put the effort in, and we're going to, you know, if we're going to play Champions League football, then it's on us to prove that we can get this club into the Champions League again. And they all seem to have almost taken that on their shoulders and just run with it. It's great.
Yeah, it's been superb, and like I say, I hope Eddie gets better sooner rather than later, and can't wait to see him back in the dugout next to Mad Dog. But don't feel like you've got to rush back, Eddie, because obviously Jason Tyndall is doing a cracking job right now, 100% win record, and a few people are jokingly tweeting, was it how out Tyndall in? Which, you know, if a 100% win record, you can't really say no to that one, but obviously all in the name of banter. But again, quick looking at this table. So if we were to beat Villa, obviously we will go to 62 points. Forest are away at Spurs, I think we mentioned just before. We could open up a 5-point gap against Forest if that was to be the case, which would be absolutely huge at this stage in the season. But the other key thing is as well, and this may sound like a negative, even if we were to lose against Villa, we still stay in that top 5. We can't drop any lower than the top 5, which is key to this little buffer that we've got against the competition. So whichever way the game goes, there's still potentially a positive spin to look at it. Hopefully it's a win with a positive, but if we do lose, the positive thing is we are still there in and around the top 5, which is always going to be a bonus. But Mark, I will get a prediction off you in terms of where we will finish in the table, but I'll get that one after your score prediction for the Villa game.
It's easy to say 6-0, isn't it? Considering that's what we've like the run of form, and we've gone from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 goals per game in the league. Look, I think it'll be relatively high scoring. I want to say that we'll snatch it 3-2.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's I'm going to predict a defeat, and that's what I'm going to go with. I'm going to say 2-0 loss, unfortunately. I just think Villa will have that little bit extra in the tank that what we have. But I'll try and guess your final league prediction.
I think we will finish 4th.
Okay, we'll take that. Absolutely not a problem whatsoever. And I was going to predict the same as well. 4th on 66 points. That will be more than good enough, I reckon. Fingers crossed it comes off. We can pull it off. We get Champions League music back again. However, that does mean for us here in Australia, we've then got to subscribe to Stan and Stan Sports again. So there's another $40 on the subscriptions, but I guarantee it will be well worth it if we can get many more nights like the PSG game. Because that was just absolutely superb. But we will leave it there. Mark, thank you very much for joining. Let us know in the comments down below what you think will happen in the Villa game, our final points prediction, and where you think we will end up come the final whistle on that final day of the season. Thank you very much, Mark. We will see you on the next one, which will hopefully be a resounding win on the Villa review.
Cheers, mate. Everyone, you and everyone, enjoy your long weekends.
Will do. Cheers, later.